Hello and welcome to the Beef Age, the Teagasc beef podcast for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan and this is the Grass Tin Update with Grass Tin Advisor Niamh Doyle with grassland management tips for the month ahead. Niamh, currently what covers of grass are there on farm at the moment?
So Catherine, if we look at pasture-based Ireland data, average farm cover is around 620 kilos of dry matter per hectare on dry stock farms. Growth is now less than demand, and therefore some farms are eating more than what they can grow. The aim for these farms is to hold farm cover for the next few weeks to aim for a closing cover of 650 kilos of dry matter per hectare on the 1st of December. Demand has dropped on most farms as finishing cattle have been housed by now, giving the younger stock the opportunity to graze into November or December, depending on weather conditions. Many calves have been weaned by now and cows dried off indoors. Weanlings have been left out to graze the final rotation.
Currently, Niamh, what are the targets for the autumn rotation now as we hit the first week of November?
So 60 to 70% of the farm should be closed by now to ensure adequate supply of grass for spring 2025. The earlier you start grazing in spring, the higher proportion of area you need closed. So 2/3 of grass available in February comes from what grows up to Christmas. Ensure that paddocks are grazed out fully before closing to allow light to the base of the sward. To get good clean outs then on paddocks, continue to strip graze, use back fence or multiple access points to reduce damage. Paddocks then that are close to the yard with good shelter should be grazed by now and closed to ensure a good cover will be on these paddocks for early grazing in February. And remember, don't regraze closed paddocks. This grass will be more valuable next spring. If you are short silage and tempted to graze on, if ground conditions are good, this will lower the grass available in the spring. The feeding value of spring grass is 2 kilos per livestock unit higher than autumn grass. So essentially you would need an extra 2 kilos of meal with autumn grass to get the same feeding value as spring grass. If you reduce average farm cover too low in autumn, grass supply will be compromised in the spring. So aim for a closing cover of 650 kilos of dry matter per hectare on the 1st of December.
What can farmers do, Niamh, that have over 2/3 of the farm grazed at this stage that you mentioned? And likewise for farmers that are behind on the grazing target and don't have 2/3 of the farm grazed and closed at the moment, what advice have you for farmers in both situations?
I suppose if there's farms that are behind on target, there's the option then maybe to house animals or introduce supplements in the form of meal or silage. So say if you have your weanlings left out, maybe introduce a supplement. Also then house your finishing animals. Now I know an awful lot of animals have been housed for finishing, but even maybe some of your forward animals, your yearlings maybe that are heavier in weight, maybe house them now as well to reduce demand.
And looking at the month ahead, what are grazing conditions expected to be?
So they're expected to be drier than normal. Drier than normal conditions continue to be predicted. Temperatures are to be closer to average, so indicating a higher instance of nighttime frost. But overall, settled conditions seem to be likely to continue with some mist and fog for the next 2 weeks. Then as we look into mid-November, it seems to turn more unsettled with rainfall predicted to close to normal and temperatures close to the average for mid-November. Then as we move into end of November, slightly drier than normal conditions are predicted in the west and northwest with near normal rainfall amounts elsewhere. Temperatures are indicated to be near normal also at this time towards the end of November. So overall grazing conditions should be good, especially for young stock to keep them out for November.
That's great to hear, Niamh. In relation to paddocks that have been oversown or fully reseeded and clovers included in those paddocks, how should they be closed up?
So closing should start this week for oversown or reseeded paddocks with white clover. It's important to graze these out tight to allow light to the base of the sward. As ground conditions are dry, it may also be a good opportunity to graze red clover fields with young stock if not already grazed or cut. It's important to not leave a heavy cover over the winter on red clover paddocks, and if grazing red clover, be mindful of bloat as clover contents tends to be high. So options to reduce bloat include adding bloat oil to water, adding a fibre source and giving 24-hour breaks.
On most farms, we're coming near the end of the very last rotation on farms. What are the key 3 messages or 3 key tasks the farmers should keep in mind in the coming weeks, Niamh?
I suppose the top 3 messages will be keep animals out grazing for as long as possible within reason, as every day at grass is worth over €2 per livestock unit. Continue to focus on closing up the farm to ensure adequate grass supply in spring and get your silage tested.
That's great, Niamh. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Catherine.
That's all for this week's episode, and thanks to Niamh for joining me on the show. For all other updates from our beef programme and grass tin are available on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie. Don't forget to join us for next week's Beef Age podcast. I'm Catherine Egan, and thanks for listening.